So, I'm so satisfied in this relationship, more satisfied than I've ever been before. And at the same time, I feel like I'm being pulled towards more. I'm not saying more in a different relationship. I'm just saying more in an expansion kind of way. And I want her to come along with me.
That has to be irrelevant.
Okay.
That has to be irrelevant.
So
that has to be irrelevant because Source, that's what we just said. Source sees her as perfect. And if you see her than less than perfect, then you have made the wrong thing relevant and you're not in alignment with Source. And now without meaning to, you're giving her the credit or the blame.
So the thing relevant then is that she's already gone there. She's already expanded to where it is that I want to go.
Often. Here's something that's a little tricky and very interesting about all of this. When you ask anyone to be sometimes in relationships, and we know you're past this, and yet it comes up with you and everyone else from time to time. When you feel about someone, being with you makes me more, or you complete me, what you're actually saying is, since I've given you the credit for my alignment, then it's only fair that I give you the blame for my misalignment. And since I can't control the way you behave, then you're sort of a problem to me. Where if you make all of that, you're not the reason I'm happy, and you're not the reason I'm unhappy. The reason I'm happy is because I've aligned with my Source, and the reason I'm unhappy is because I'm not aligned with my Source. So my happiness is not dependent. My love is unconditional. My happiness is unconditional. My love is unconditional. My connection is unconditional. It's not connected to you, which means you're free to receive the benefit of my love. I'm not giving you credit or blame for my love. To be the receiver of that is the greatest gift that you could ever give to anyone, because anything less than that is bondage. To say to someone, and parents do it to their children, children do it to their parents, you're all doing it to each other, you're holding each other in unreasonable captivity. Saying to each other that my happiness depends on you, and therefore you need to be different, and so you're stepping all over each other's toes of freedom.
Yeah.
What is unconditional love anyway? Unconditional love is, I'm happy. I'm happy. I'm happy in this moment. Unconditional love is, I have the ability to focus myself in happiness. You have to reach the place where you are willing to let that debate go with everyone, where you say, I cannot experience unconditional love while I've got active in my vibration things that the Source within me does not have active in their vibration.
Right. So even thinking about the conversation that you had about them going away from you because of the topic that you didn't want to talk about because he was going to pull you out of the vortex is doing the same thing.
And if you keep it up, then the evidence of it is there. Now all of this, it sounds difficult, really, because you're interacting with so many people on so many levels. But when you look at it the way we're trying to get you to see it, it isn't difficult when you care about how you feel. In other words, you can't think like that because in the vortexness, you will elicit it from them. In other words, it's not like they're all going to go away. What's more likely to happen is that the best of them will come to you. And that's what we meant earlier. We want to go back and address this. We said to you earlier, so here's all of these possible situations, relationships, encounters, conversations out there. Plethora of them, more detailed and more in number than we could even begin to even articulate slightly. It's a huge mass of possible interaction. And here is your point of attraction in the vortex. So let's say you're not in the vortex. So now all of that stuff is relating to you from there. Or you're a little closer to the vortex and all of that is relating to you from there. Or you're really close to the vortex and all of that is relating to you from there. Or you are in the vortex experiencing unconditional love and all of that is relating to you from there. So in this woman that you love is all of this potential. If you if you think of nothing other than where you are in relationship to your vortex, that's easy to manage.
Yeah.
And as you accomplish this, then you'll get the best from her, you'll get the best from the people you work with, you'll get the best from the restaurants, you'll get the best from traffic, you'll get the best from the cellular interaction in your body, you'll get the best from the mental communication that happens within you, you'll get the best from your communication with source. In other words, you'll line up with the best weather, you'll line up with the best tickets on airplanes, you'll line up with the best of everything, not just her. Unconditional love gets you the best of all of it, you see. And we promise you, it's a whole lot easier to just deal with 4 or 5 levels of vibration than it is to sift through all of the piles of your girlfriend.
Right. All I really need to do is focus on the relationship between me, and all the things that I've put there, the best of them will be showing up. Instead, I guess I've been worrying about and not even realizing it, but the indicators are there. So I guess I've been thinking more about what's wrong, what you think, where you're at with it, how is it relating to you, and then coming from that angle.
Well, we can see how that would seem relevant when you're not in the vortex.
Yeah.
But when you're in the vortex, experiencing unconditional relevancy, make your vortex the only thing that's relevant, which means make everything else irrelevant. But what happens is, once you consistently do that, and you hold your girlfriend or anyone as your object of attention from inside the vortex, then you can only see the aspects of her that are relevant to where you are. In other words, unconditional, you can't see, if you're really tuned into who you are, you can't see a flaw in someone. And if you see a flaw in someone, it's not their flaw.
It's my flaw.
Indicators of not being in the vortex just makes you want to be in more. Why do you think we're having this conversation? This is the most leading edge conversation we've ever had about being in the vortex or about unconditional love or about relationships. This was a really meaty conversation that we just had that we would not have had if you had always been in the vortex.
Yeah.
That's why you're here and we're here. In other words, we sent you out as a guinea pig. Or as Jerry's friend calls it, an Abrahamster.
Well, I just want to feel better. I feel pretty good, and it's obvious, but I just want to feel better, and that's why I'm reaching for ways to feel better more often. And I'm getting a little light shined on the fact that I do bless being out of the vortex because I know the bounce. I know the contrast serves me well. I know there's eternalness in it.
That's really the piece. In other words, and until you're faced with the life or death isn't the right terminology, but we wanted to be dramatic so that you'd hear it in that way. Until you're faced with the sort of life or death, which is like in the vortex or out of the vortex choice of something, you often do the lazy thing. And Esther experienced that with this book launch. In other words, it seemed rational to make the book launch and the way it related to important clients, it seemed rational to make that important. But the discomfort of being out of the vortex on such an important subject was so severe that it was like life or death. It was like give it up or die. The discomfort was so strong. And of course, we're being overly dramatic a little bit, but when you come to, when a situation makes you feel enough discord that it causes you to put things in their right priority, it's always worth it.
Yeah, well, you've taught me so well that the small amount of time that I'm out of the vortex, I appreciate and I understand, but it hurts.
Well, here's the thing. This is the reason why we want to talk to you, and we want to talk to you until you get it, you and everyone else, is because your blessed vortex is going to keep moving into higher and higher frequencies. So there's going to be plenty of out of the vortex moments on your way to being in the vortex. And we want you to make peace with that. It has to be all right to be out of the vortex. And so if we can say to you, it has to be all right to be out of the vortex, but it's just so darn painful to be way out of the vortex. You see, being out of the vortex isn't a big deal. It's staying out that makes it. It's like being a little hungry actually makes dinner taste better. But if you are hungry for a really long time, it gets to be quite a drag, and then it can be really detrimental to your physical apparatus. And so we're talking about extremes. So being out of the vortex is no big deal. Making a career out of it is the problem, you see. And so, but when you get it, that being in the vortex feels really good, and being out of the vortex makes you put more in it. And when you put more in it, then you want to be in it more. And when you want to be in it more, then you're more focused. And when you're more focused, you're more alive. And when you're alive, you feel better. And when you lose your focus, which you often do, then you're out of the vortex. You want more focus. And then when you find more focus, you're in. So then it becomes like the trampling that we're talking about. You let the down be as important to the bounce as the up. In other words, it's all part of the process. And you don't make it be this statement or proclamation of worthiness or righteousness on you or anyone else. You say, I'm alive and I'm a creator and I'm a molder and I'm doing just fine. And Source loves me. Here's the most important thing to remember. Source unconditionally loves you even when you're not in the vortex. Isn't that interesting? That's why you feel bad when you're not. If Source was mad at you for not being in the vortex when you weren't in, you wouldn't feel bad. Did you get that?
Yeah.
If Source was not in the vortex when you went out, you wouldn't feel the separation. So can't you afford yourself the same benefit? So when you're not in the vortex, here's what you say. Well, at least Source still loves me. Source refuses to get out of the vortex just because I'm out of the vortex. So I should give myself the same break, you see. And then say, Source and I have an agreement. My inner being was born, when I was born into this time-space reality, my inner being stayed in the vortex. When I expanded out into this contrast, my inner being stayed in the vortex. My job is to come out occasionally. My inner being's job is to stay in always. So, since I'm just doing what I was born to do, why am I making it such a big hairy deal when I'm out? Answer, because it felt so good when I was in that I don't feel good when I'm out. Conclusion, don't stay out very long. Don't stay out very long, but don't condemn being out.
It's really fun moving in, too.
Well, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It can't be fun moving in. You can't have the bounce up if you didn't have the bounce down. In other words, it really is that simple. It's all part of the process. And so.
Well, I've heard you say that moving into the vortex is where life is lived.
That's where the passion of life, and you know why? Because as you come into the vortex, you come into the fullness of all that you are, you see.
Yeah.
But if you came into the fullness of all that you are, and that's all that you are, and it's all that you are, and then it's all that you are, and it's all that you are, and it's all that you are, and it's all that you are, it's all that you are, it wouldn't be enough in time.
It's sort of boring.
It would be boring.
Well, I get it, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.